Welcome to the Interop. Today, my guest is Youssef Amrani. He's the co-founder of Accelerator DAO. It is a grant-focused DAO for the Cosmos Hub. In today's conversation, we will discuss AADAO's raison d'être and its mandate. We'll look back on 9 months of existence and the impressive work done by the DAO in this short amount of time. We'll also talk about the research and other initiatives AADAO has funded. We'll discuss Prop 848 and what it means for the future of hub economics. We'll talk about the new funding proposal for AADAO for 2024 that is currently up on the Cosmos Hub forum for discussion. And we'll talk about the future of the hub in the face of new shiny layer ones and narratives. I'm also dying to find out why he thinks Atom will be in the top 5, but not without sweat and tears. So before we get started, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop every week. And remember that none of what we discuss here on the Interop is investment advice. And if you enjoy this content, please consider staking with us. We're validating on Avmos, Quicksilver, Osmosis, and Juno. Just look for Interop in the active set. My guest, Youssef Amrani, is coming up next, right here on the Interop. I'm here with Youssef Amrani. Youssef, hey, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Seb, thank you so much for having me.
So I've known you for a little while, and you got involved in Cosmos. Like I think when I first encountered you, I was like, yeah, this guy, he's just like a new guy in Cosmos. He kind of came out of nowhere, and you were part of the Atom 2.0 white paper authors. So I'd love to get your backstory and how you came into crypto, and specifically how you got involved in Cosmos, and with co-authoring the Atom 2.0 white paper.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me. So crypto, my journey in crypto was very traditional, meaning that I started with Bitcoin in 2016, 2017, like a lot of people in the space. And then I discovered Ethereum, which I thought was you could do much more with Ethereum with smart contract. It opened the design space by orders of magnitude. And that's where I found Cosmos, which if Bitcoin is the first generation, then ETH is the second generation. And I see Cosmos as the third generation. So third generation is, in addition to smart contracts, you're also adding on-chain governance and interoperability. And I think that the combination of those two things, gives a very powerful narrative, and it also allows for the rise of political economies. And even better, it's a web of political economies, because all those chains that we see in Cosmos, plus 70 chains right now, they are interconnected via IBC. They have their own on-chain governance, so they can also do cross-chain governance. So like the speed, the level of iteration that you can do with on-chain governance and interop is just mind-boggling. And how the community reacts, how vibrant the various communities are in Cosmos is a beauty, and it's something that doesn't make me want to go explore other ecosystem, because you have pretty much everything in Cosmos.
Yeah, I mean, I echo that sentiment. I came in the Cosmos and I first interviewed Jay and Ethan on Epicenter in 2016, and they were first floating around some of these ideas back then. And I remember being at a DevCon in Cancun, and Sunny gave a talk about app chains. And it was like he gave a talk about app chains in a very small room. It was sort of like something that he had organized on the side, right? And there's maybe 20, 25 people there. And it just, I think that those ideas, the ideas of app chains and interoperability, were the seed for the modular narrative and for modular blockchains, right? Where you want to break things up, whereas previously we had everything on the same chain. Cosmos said, let's break up applications so that they are sovereign, and then we're going to create composability by allowing interoperability with these really strong interoperability primitives. And then what's happening now with modular, and I think it's the sort of logical step for blockchains, is let's also break apart applications into different layers, into different modular components, in the same way that internet infrastructure and a Web 2 application infrastructure has modularized. And it's a sort of a logical step in software development to specialize every component of the application, all the way up to, right now, I think a lot of that modularization is happening at more of the infrastructure layer, but soon we'll see also that modularization happening at the application layer. So, it's really cool to see like this vision really playing out, and these ideas now, being adopted in Ethereum and like basically every blockchain ecosystem. How did you get involved with the white paper, like the Atom 2.0 white paper? And I guess, what are the big lessons that you took away from that whole
Yeah.
episode?
Yeah. So first, before talking about Atom 2.0, I want to emphasize why I was so vocal about Atom, even months before, even a year before we started Atom 2.0, was that I like the belief that I have, it's that I had back then, and I still do have this belief. It's a core belief that if you want Cosmos, any successful ecosystem, if you want that ecosystem to be successful, you need the native token to be strong. That's the case with ETH. That's the case with Solana. That's the case with Avalanche. It's the case with all those ecosystems. You cannot have it's otherwise. So I understand the ethos of Cosmos, which is strong decentralization, uh, doesn't necessarily need a strong token, but at the same time, if you have an ecosystem without a leader, that becomes potentially the source of trouble, because people, when they ask about something, when they ask about an ecosystem, they want to understand what is the underlying asset, what does it do, right? And so we just went from there, and I still think today that we have huge missed opportunities at the Cosmos level. I'm not talking about the Cosmos Hub, at the Cosmos level, because Atom was not able to reinvent itself. So that's where I started from. So how I got involved with Atom 2.0 is I was just very vocal about Atom and explaining that we needed to fix it. And I started working on a small initiative on myself, gathering people to do working group, and that's how to fix atom tokenomics via on-chain governance after proper research. And that's where I met with Zaki, who was doing the same thing on his own. And then we said, you know what, why don't we just join forces and build that working group? And that's how I ended up working on the white paper. So on the white paper, uh, it caused a lot of trauma. It fractured the community. Uh, some of the reasons are there behind why we started AADAO was that trauma, that deep fracture that happened, uh, that can be seen as a curse of on-chain governance. But on-chain governance, once again, is you know double-faced. So it can be a blessing if you know how to use it. It is a superpower, but for the best and for the worst. And so on Atom 2.0, it was, back then we said, for the worst. But if you look at what came after, a lot of things started to get together, to all the pieces started to get together right after Atom 2.0. But on Atom 2.0, so I think that the vision was spot on. If you look right now at everything that is happening, was somehow predicted in the white paper. So shared security, obviously, liquid staking, that is made now a big success, a very promising narrative with Stride, Quicksilver, persistence. I think that the Cosmos has been one of the pioneer in liquid staking, much more flexibility. If you look at the liquid staking module by Eclusion and Zaki, it's a beautiful thing. So I think that the direction was right. Wanting to position Atom as the interchain money, I think also was the right guess. Um, Now, what didn't go well, I would say, was mostly the methodology and how we tried to do things. And I'll cover a bit more when we start talking about AADAO and the new research from Blockworks, Binary, and RMIT. But I think that the approach where we did it in between closed doors, when we I don't want to say kept it secret. It was just part of the process where we did some work and we were super excited about it, and we really thought that the proposal would pass. And now it seems it was not the right way to do it, and I understand. So doing it between closed doors, not in an open fashion, I think was we didn't do it taking into consideration the fact that Atom was one of the most decentralized, if not the most decentralized layer one in the entire crypto space. And as such, they're just things that you cannot do. And there was so much excitement around Atom 2.0, and nothing happened for years. So when we came up with that white paper, we thought like there is zero chance that this thing is not going to pass, right? Zero chance, because nothing happened for 2 years and people were expecting something. People were
Yeah.
fantasizing on this. And then the second mistake that we did was that we didn't slice anything. We tried to, it was like all or nothing, a massive
Yeah.
white paper of 25, 30 pages, very complex to understand because it was quite a sophisticated document, no summary. And I think that we should have sliced that paper in multiple parts and just do it piece by piece on the governance side. And I think that we would have likely had better outcomes. And then there is the minting. Also, that was a big problem, because if you want to mint $50 million in a few years without having the governance infrastructure to make sure that you have accountability in place, DAOs in place, etc., was maybe a bit too ambitious and a bit premature. But again, it was a signaling proposal. There was no code commit. There was no funding committed. But yeah, the rest is history, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get into this too much here because we've covered this extensively on the podcast. I just wanted to hear it from you and understand if there was anything sort of any new information here. But it seems like the lessons that you've learned or that you've expressed here are the same that that I've talked here on the podcast, quite a few times, like, breaking things up, doing things in public. And, those lessons I think have been applied to, in a lot of ways, to how AADAO operates and the research that's being done there. So yeah, maybe like, let's shift gears to AADAO. Like, what is this organization? And what is this mandate? And I think more importantly, and this is something that I think a lot of people will find interesting, is that it is in fact a DAO, and you guys have set up the legal structure in a way that it can be it is governed by a DAO. So I'm curious, like, also if you could get into the details about the legal structure and how you've managed to sort of effectively DAOify a proper legal structure.
Yeah. So on the legal structure, we are actually about to set it up. It's 80% done, and why it took so much time was because we started thinking about our scope for the second year, and it kept changing. And because the scope was changing, so does the requirements for the legal structure. So now all the legal documents are ready. We just need to do some proofreading, but it's going to be a structure in the Guernsey jurisdiction. We're going to use a professional trustee that is mitigating our legal risk, that is providing a legal shield to all the members of the DAO. So all the members will be hosted on and protected by this legal structure, and the professional trustee is basically acting as a first step, as a first filter that protects all the members. I think that DAOs, what we want to do with a DAO from a governance perspective is try to modernize it as much as possible. And it like we have some severe limitations, and the legal structure is able basically to provide us with a real representation in real life, because that's a big problem for DAOs. Is you have an existence on chain, but off chain you're nobody. So that's the reason why, like, if someone wants to talk to you, you need to have a legal structure to do that. So that's the reason behind the legal structure. Now, in terms of like how the legal structure operates, it is basically very aligned with our own structure within the DAO on chain. So next year we're migrating to DAO, and all those, and then I think we're going to have a chance to talk about it for talking about the future of AADAO. But we're
Yep.
going to be organized as subcommittees or sub DAOs, and those subcommittees are also present in the legal structure, so that we make sure that there is no gap between off-chain structure, the off-chain governance, and the on-chain governance. I think this is absolutely key to avoid, misunderstandings between the different team members.
Yeah, and I think if executed well, also acts as a framework for other DAOs and like other organizations similar to AADAO that are operating on behalf of a blockchain or on behalf of a layer one. So, yeah, are you guys planning on publishing any of of the sort of like legal work and the legal structure that went into like this
100%.
this legal? Yeah.
I mean, we would love to. Our goal was to publish that with our second proposal, to renew our mandate. But we want to make sure that we have all the paperwork ready. It's a lot of paperwork, and we need to once again proofread that. But yeah, the goal is absolutely to share pretty much everything. I mean, we have it's on-chain governance. We've always been extremely transparent with the community. That's, I think, one of the things that makes people love AADAO, is that we've been very forthcoming and transparent. We have nothing to hide. Our wallets are public. So yeah, we intend to share that, because it's also a public good of sharing those information for any upcoming DAO.
No, it's cool. I mean, that's a great example, I think, for like other ecosystems that might want to do something similar. And it's like I think it's super cool, right? I mean, it's cool that you have a legal structure that manages that is in fact managed by a DAO that protects like that creates protections like limited liability for the DAO members, and that also allows you to like attract other members of the DAO as well, and like hire people and like have them be sort of protected. And yeah.
And then so there is the protection aspect, but there is also a very practical aspect, which is, and that's something that we're working toward, is, let's say that you are a DAO employee and you're a full-time employee, like myself, for example. Well, what happens if you want to take a mortgage? Well, you should be able to take a mortgage. Like, I mean, one friction for DAOs is, well, people say, well, you know what, I'd rather work for Binance or for Kraken, a centralized exchange, because I have an employment of letter. I have a letter of employment. I can go to the bank.
Yeah.
I can take a loan, and those things were not able without. You can't do that with a legal structure. So that's our like phase two of the legal structure. So phase one is just to provide the legal liability protection, and then phase two is really like to become this legal structure become a service for the DAO employees, where they can ask for different kind of paperwork to help them in their day to day. We think this is absolutely critical to bridge the gap between working off chain and working on chain.
Cool. So what's the mandate of AADAO? And I think it's obvious that the hub has provided financing for the DAO, and we'll talk about the proposal that is by the time this released will be up on the forum. But are there other organizations that also are providing funding to the DAO now? Maybe
Yeah.
just sort of giving a broad overview of like the mandate and the funding.
Yeah, sure. So the mandate, I would say, at the highest abstraction level, was for AADAO to become the very first 100% aligned Cosmos Hub organization. So what do I mean by 100% aligned? Well, we're fully funded by the hub, and as such, we're owned by the hub. So if the hub is not happy with our services, they can put a proposal up, say we want to discontinue ADAO, and we just return the funds. That's and I think that's something that is severely underrated for a token that is worth a few $1 billion, not having one organization that is really aligned is was an almost an anomaly that we contributed to fix. So now, yes, we are 100% aligned. What do we do? So we basically are a grant program. So we only do grants. That was at least for the first mandate, because things are about to change in the second mandate. So we're focusing on ecosystem initiatives and public goods. And one of the reasons why we exist, and again, that's looking back at the context, is prior to us, the only way to ask for money when it comes to Atom was through the public governance. And we identified major bottlenecks with this way of doing. I remember a few governance proposals asking for 2, 3, 5,000 Atom to do very small initiatives. And it just didn't make sense. We needed an alternative source of funding that can channel some of the funding proposals. And we think that for example, small to medium funding initiatives should be channeled through a dedicated structure, and that dedicated structure is a DAO. Long term, if you think about it, public governance is like a parliament on chain public. So would you go to the Canadian Parliament and ask for $1,000? Of course not. Those are that doesn't make sense. And so what we noticed was just that we're still very early, and we identified a gap, which is we don't have a grant program. Why don't have a grant program? We should have one. Osmosis has one, and we did that, and it is successful. The other reason for AADAO was, well, after all this drama around Atom, we keep coming back to Atom 2.0, but I just like to say 30 seconds about that is, I think the best way back then, in the aftermath of Atom 2.0, to reunite the community, that fractured community, was around building something that is more objective, right? So I say, forget about the drama, forget about just let's focus on building, and we wanted to make sure that we were preventing an exodus from developers right after, because it was a real danger after Atom 2.0. No direction, no funding for grants. So we said, okay, why don't we do this grant program that's going to be consensual, where we take some of the liquidity and we send it back to the developers to make sure that they stay involved. And I think it's about unlocking the collective intelligence of the hub, moving from just a passive staking token to a token where you can do some actual building and build some bridges between the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like Atom Accelerator as a bridge builder is one of like its most underrated functions. Beyond funding and everything, is like acting. And this was brought up like lots of times. I think with regards to the ICF and how like in the last several years, I've had countless people reach out to me and ask, hey, can you put me in touch with the ICF? Because like the ICF has this brand, right? It is the most well-known, I think, organization in the Interchain and Cosmos. And if you type Cosmos in Google, like you'll probably fall on the Interchain Foundation website. Only the Interchain Foundation was not the right like interlocutor for most of these requests, because people want to have they want an entry point to the ecosystem where they can get introductions. They can get introductions to developers, to dev shops, to validators, to projects that they might want to work with. And I think like AADAO taking a role as potentially like a connector for not only people within the ecosystem, but people coming from the outside that are looking for an entry point into the ecosystem is like a highly valuable function that is very underrated. And I think like other ecosystems have, right? Like if you go to Avalanche or whatever, like you have Avalabs. If you go to Near, you can go to the Near Foundation, and like they have BD people that are just like dedicated to doing that. And that's something that's missing, and I hope that AADAO takes a more stronger role in facilitating.
Well, it is. It is so. One quick thing. I think you're spot on, and to be honest, that's always been my vision. Especially like, let's say, the second part of the mandate, it became crystal clear that we would want to become for the hub what Ava Labs or those or each foundation are for their respective ecosystem. Not we don't have the ambition to do it for the entire Cosmos, but at least for the hub, be that entry point, be that connector for the hub for inbounds and also for outbounds to be honest.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's talk about let's get into the grants, right? And so the work that AADAO has been doing for the last for the last year since it was founded. I think it was in like January, so it hasn't even been a year, right? The
It has
AADAO is not
been
even a
much
year.
less than a year. It has
Yeah.
we received the funding on February 10. We opened the
Right.
application around March 15. We closed the application on September 5th so that we can process the existing backlog and get prepared for. So we really gave grant for 6 months, and we've been around for about 9 months.
Wow. And like, I mean, people should check out this impact report that you guys have written because for an organization that's 9 months old and has a team of I think like 10-ish people, you've like produced a ton and done like a lot
Thank you.
in terms of deliverables. So yeah, maybe talk about what is the work that you've done over the last year? What are like the main things that ADAO has accomplished and delivered for the Cosmos community and like specifically for the hub?
100%. So I'll start by what were our objectives in the first mandate, those first 9 months. So we had two meta objectives. One was to fix or meaningfully contributing to fix the atom tokenomics. So for that, we did the exact opposite of Atom 2.0, and that was done on purpose, which is be as consensual, as inclusive as possible, do research in the open, do a public discourse and the public consultation. So we run an RFP. An RFP is a request for proposal where you publish high level specs and then you call for people to apply. So we got 13 application, 3-1, so Blockworks Research, Binary Builders, and RMIT, an Australian team of blockchain researchers. They've been doing great work so far. We just wanted to make sure that it is a bottom up approach and not a top down approach like we had with Atom 2.0. We also wanted to make sure that the research is open from day one, not like as the researcher find things to talk about, they just publish it. They don't wait for the entire research to be ready to publish it. We've done multiple Twitter spaces. At Cosmoverse, Youssef were there in the AEZ room hosted by AADAO. We had
Yeah, it was the AZ room was like amazing. It was like always full of great people, great conversations, like really engaging.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And shout out to Bendy who was there with Rina for the entire time. So yeah, that's the first thing, and I'm very happy with. Look, I we cannot control the outcome, right? Like that's just the nature of things. That's the nature of on-chain governance. What we can control, like we have an obligation of uh, having the means, but we don't have an obligation on the results themselves because we don't control the results. So the means are there, we put them, and I'm super excited because as we speak, the very first module, research module, which is by Binary Builders, it's called the Atom Alignment Treasury, uh, has been posted on the forum for discussion as a signaling proposal, meaning it's gonna go on chain, very soon, potentially by the end of the year. And we also what we did at AADAO is to commit on, okay, we'll do the research side. We fund the research. Anything that passes governance, we commit to funding it. So that we manage the full life cycle and we make it as practical as possible. It's not just yes, we do the research and then go to public governance. No, we're committed to the entire process, and that's what we intend to do. The second objective of ADA when we started was basically to just give trust again and give confidence again to the builders. And so sometimes we're accused of not having, a very focused strategy on what do we want to fund and what do we we don't want to found. And I would tell you that was done on purpose. It was not an accident. Why? Because we just wanted to assess the general appetite of the builders in the hub before taking a direction in year two. So in year two, we'll be much more intentional in how we allocate resource. But in year one, it was just about putting food on the table of developers, because if you don't put that food, they're just going to leave to other ecosystems, to other ones that are much more welcoming and have much more liquidity. So those were the two things: assess the general appetite, serve the general appetite, and fix the atom tokenomics. Now, maybe I can take a few more minutes to talk about more in a more granular way about our achievements. So I talked about
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So I talked about the tokenomics. We also pushed really hard on that narrative of Atom as money, and we pushed on Atom as a gas token, because I think that people say that gas token doesn't really matter. It's very little. I think it's a very powerful narrative. That's the ETH narrative has started with ETH as gas token, basically. So we've been involved with multiple grants with wallet providers. The first one of them being Leap, the second one being Mystic Lab. So Mystic Lab is the building a version of Cosmos Snaps. So we made sure with the Mystic Labs that that Atom was used as the default gas token. So whenever you have Atom in your wallet, it will just take it and pay for the gas for any transactions. With Leap, we're doing a few similar things where you have an AEZ view where you can use your Atom, your rewards from other tokens, swap them into Atom. So wherever we could push for Atom with wallets, we did. So that's, I think, a big area. On the Atom Economic Zone, which is the second vertical in which I think we had a pretty significant impact. So the hub deployed its very first protocol on liquidity. That happened a few months ago when Stride joined the AEZ. So they requested 450,000 Atom to be put on Astroport on the Neutron side as double-sided liquidity on the ST Atom pool. They needed a custodian, and they came to us, and of course we said yes. It was not part. It's not a grant, right? Like, it has nothing to do with the grant program, but we still did it because we felt there was a strong need for that. So we're still custodying this money today. So that's one thing that we did for AEZ. The second thing that we did for AEZ, which I think people are starting to be aware now, is when Neutron joined AEZ, the original proposal said that any unclaimed airdrop would go back to the Neutron DAO instead of the Atom community pool. We reached out to Neutron stakeholders. We talked with them and we say, hey, why don't you send that unclaimed airdrop to the Atom community pool instead? That was 42 million tokens that are today worth close to $22 million. So we didn't take anything on that. We did it for free because we're aligned with Atom. That's not something that the ICF would have done. No one could have done that except us, because we were representing the Atom community. So that's the Atom Economic Zone. On the Atom Economic Zone, we also launched what we call an AEZ Accelerator with Neutron and Longhash, which is a leading VC in Asia. So I think we'll have plenty of time to talk about AEZ, but AEZ cannot be just words. It needs to be actions, right? It needs to take shape, to be concrete. And so this accelerator is a first step in the right direction. How do you showcase AEZ? It has to be collaboration. That's the only way to build AEZ, is to have those entities coordinate together for a desired outcome. So we did that. On the event side and the media side, we did a lot. For example, Cosmoverse. Last year, it was tragic that the hub was the main sponsor, had zero representation at Cosmoverse 2022 in Medellin. Nothing, not even a Twitter space. And this year we said, wait, you know what? AADAO is going to be the main sponsor, but we'll do it the right way. We will do the proper organization, and we will have a real representation for the hub, which was around the AEZ room. I did a keynote representing the hub and AADAO, and multiple. We were the sponsor of the opening ceremony, where we give a small speech, and all of that has a lot of value. On events and media side, once again, we did the very first the very first hackathon in the history of the Cosmos Hub. It never had its own hackathon, and we did it around the AEZ to surf on that narrative and push that narrative. I think the winners are about to be announced, or were just announced a few days ago. We showcased Neutron and Stride. So media side, again, Blockworks. We sponsored Blockworks. I think it's very important for the hub to align with strong media brands, and because the hub had no representation, it was not able to do that. But once we started, it was very easy for media to come reach out to us, or for us to reach out to them to outbound and say, hey, the hub would like to sponsor. So we came up with that basic framework for media and events, where we say it's not about AADAO, it's about the hub. So if you look at how we did it for Cosmoverse, we said the main sponsor is the Cosmos Hub via AADAO, right? So it's like everyone is at its own place. It's not about us, it's about the hub. So that's on the media side. On shared security is something that is absolutely critical for the long-term success of the hub. Like the whole narrative of AEZ started as shared security as an anchor point, as a Schelling point. And so we invested in two critical initiatives. So the first one is mesh security. Like if we agree that security is one of the main modes of the Cosmos Hub, then we can't afford to miss on something very promising, such as mesh security. So we invested with a few teams. Akash, Accelerator, research are ongoing. I think the implementation phase is going to be somewhere in Q1, Q2 of 2024. And so that's a given. We also helped decentralize the set of contributors for ICS itself, replicated security. So we gave a grant to crypto crew validators to develop a framework called the ICS Kickstack service, where it is a one-stop shop for testnets around replicated security. So that helped a lot. Informal system and also ICF, we made sure that there was proper collaboration between the three parties, and that helped offload basically informal system, because now there is a new contributor in town helping specifically with testnets. So that's on shared security. We also started making revenues on behalf of the hub to generate revenues. So that Mystic Lab grant on Cosmos Snap, we announced a few months ago that 33%, a third of the IBC swap fees would go straight to the Atom community pool, not to us, not to our multisig, to the Atom community pool. And that's something that we want to explore much more in the coming future. And we made a few other deals in the past few weeks. If you look at batch 6 and batch 7, where some tokens, some equity from the project that we granted, like Astrovault, for example, will be sent to the community pool. So that's an area that we absolutely want to explore next year. So yeah, I took some time, but those are a few things where we helped.
No, I mean the amount of work that has gone into this grant funding, I think, is pretty tremendous. Given again, like just how young the organization is and how many people are on the team. I want to talk a little bit about the research side of things, because that's, I think, the work that has potentially like the most impact, like the most tangible impact on the future of the hub and like Atom utility. So and specifically, there's like two areas I think is one is Atom utility, and the other would be like this treasury alignment work that Binary Builders has been doing. Can you summarize these research areas, and what are the outcomes of this work so far?
Yeah, sure. So I would say it's in a good place, and the main reason why I'm saying that is it seems that the three teams were able to align on a simple yet powerful concept, and it's not easy to find consensus in blockchain, and that consensus we want to push for is atom is money. And I know that a lot of people, would say no, it's not money, etc. But that is the narrative that we're trying to pursue, and I think that there is some, some real legitimacy. So it's atom as money, but also atom as interchain security provider. And so it starts with the security, and then it expands to the money. So the research, the three teams on binary. So binary is working on three different modules. So the first one is called the Atom Alignment Treasury, and what basically it allows you to do is for the community pool, the Atom community pool, to deploy liquidity within the AEZ in a trustless way, and that is, I think, game changing, because that solves the trust issue. So I'll just give you an example. The prop 800, where AADAO is helping as a custodian of that 450,000 atom, which is a lot of money. We are custodying this money with binary builders work on the Atom Alignment Treasury. AADAO won't need anymore to do those kind of intervention. It would just go straight from the committee pool, the validator set voting yes or no, and the money just happening all in the background. One other thing that this Atom Alignment Treasury is gonna allow, which is absolutely beautiful, is to use the tokens of consumer chains, like the Neutron airdrop right now of 42 million, to basically have the hub vote on Neutron proposals in on their deck. And that's absolutely mind-boggling, because it allows for cross-chain governance. That's like, people don't realize that yet. And so if you end up in a situation where, let's say, we have 5, 6, 8 consumer chains, and each time the hub owns some equity within those projects, then that means that the hub every time can vote. So that money would be sitting not on the community pool; it would be sitting on what we call the Atom Alignment Treasury, and the voters would vote. So let's say that the Atom voters do 70% yes, 30% no on a Neutron proposal. That weighting would be respected within the Neutron governance, and same with other tokens.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So the other thing that Binary is working on, it's called the bear market strategic reserve. That research is not on the forum yet. It's going to be posted fairly soon, I guess, maybe going early 2024, which is basically some basic trading capabilities for the hub, meaning that when atom price goes a lot up in a bull market, you sell some atom, right? And then when atom goes down a lot, you buy back some atom with that money that you made. So you always have some stable coin reserves. And I think that a DAO, I mean, if we want to be serious about managing a DAO, we have to do treasury management, right? So it's just basic treasury management, so that when there is a bear market, you don't get completely decimated and that everyone leaves. You have a solid reserve of stablecoin to keep building, and I think that is about the long-term sustainability of a DAO. The third one is called the DRIP, which is a developer developer revenue incentivization program, which is about aligning the core contributors of the hub on the growth of Atom, and give them a proper pay, basically, to make sure that they're aligned to vesting, etc. Give them a constant token allocation in Atom, so that they keep working long term. So that's binary. Blockworks is working more on the fiscal side and on the monetary side. Blockworks basically is saying that we are overpaying for security. They've done some benchmark research around Solana, around ETH, etc., and they found out that the hub overpays security by a lot. And I mean, we all know that. And so they're basically suggesting to move from a dynamic inflation model to a more static, more predictable uh, inflation model. And I think that's critical, because if you want to attract uh, investors, you need some sort of predictability on the inflation side, and that's non-negotiable. And I hope it's going to happen. His effort capital is also working, and Blockworks are also working on what we call liquid staking tax. Liquid staking is inevitable. Like you would say, alcohol and cigarettes. Like you just can't stop it. You just can't stop it. But what if we could make revenues using liquid staking, and then use those revenues to be sent to the community pool and do some more POL? Like, if you have that liquid staking tax, there are two things you can do with it. You can burn it and kickstart a new narrative around Atom as hard money, because you would be able, if you burn it, you'll be able to also reduce inflation. Or you can use it to send it to the community pool and reinvest in the AEZ tokens by taking more alignment in the AEZ tokens, and become a bank for the entire AEZ, a strong funding organization. So those are the ideas of Blockworks and Binary. And then the last team, which is RMIT, is working exclusively on governance, the governance side. So two kind of governance: the governance within the AEZ, the governance within the replicated security environment, and then governance within the hub itself. So they just published a paper, a super interesting paper, 25 pages, yesterday actually. I retweeted it on my account. You can also look at the Cosmos Hub forum. It's also retweeted on our Twitter account. So what does it says? It says that for ICS to be successful, we need to account for all those use cases within replicated security. So we need to make sure that we have periodic reviews of ICS contracts, because those needs evolve, right? So when we first joined and boarded Neutron, there was a set of circumstances, and those circumstances might evolve over time, right? Like the one token might go up by a lot, the other one, and then how do you do to align? You have to revise, right? And so what they're suggesting is to have dedicated governance body that do those periodic reviews directly on the hub, but also on the Neutron side, or potentially have a DAO which is composed of representative from the hub and representative from Neutron, Stride, etc., that negotiate on behalf of their respective layer ones. That's one. And then on the other one, on the other side, which is the governance side of the hub in general, is well, they want to do a benchmark on AADAO itself and say, hey, how can we use AADAO framework to create more DAOs? What are those oversight mechanisms? Do you need an oversight sub DAO, for example? Because if we end up with 3-4 sub DAOs like AADAO, you're gonna need some basic oversight. Like right now, we are doing oversight ourselves. We have our own oversight committee, uh, and we're trying to be as transparent as possible. But in an ideal world, you would want that oversight to be performed directly via the hub itself. So yeah, those are the three areas around fixing Atom tokenomics and governance. And in terms of timeline, I think that, like we discussed, we're doing the opposite of Atom 2.0. It's much more, it's less risky. There is less governance risk because we're doing piece by piece. But the downside is it's going to take more time, right? So we think that it's going to take potentially 3 to 6 months to pass all those modules. There's 7 different modules, 2 modules around governance, 5 modules around fiscal policy, monetary policy, inflation, etc. And if we can do that within 6 months, that would be amazing. It doesn't mean that everything is going to pass. It's pending governance. But if we can pass a few, the most important one, it's going to be a net positive for the Cosmos Hub.
That's amazing. I think that there's so much research work here. I mean, like, thanks for giving that summary. I'll have to do. I mean, I've been meaning to get, David from Blockworks Research on, and Gnome from Binary, and now that this RMIT research has come out, I think it would be useful to do a podcast with each of these organizations and like drill down into the research. I'd like to talk about, because it's sort of, you know very topical right now, the Prop 848, right? So Blockworks published this research, essentially, and David also talked about this at Cosmoverse, essentially saying that like the hub was paying way too much for security compared to other ecosystems, and as a result, there was a proposal that went up on the hub. I mean, first on the forum, then on the hub, suggesting to adjust the parameter to adjust the atom inflation, and so therefore the rewards that validators would get for validating on the hub. So like currently, as we're recording this, that proposal ends. The voting period ends in about a day. So probably as this will release, and it's currently like pretty 50-50. Like not all votes are in, but there's a chance that it might pass, and there's a chance that it might not pass. And so I'm curious. Like, I don't want to ask you about your opinion about this. I know you like to stay pretty neutral when it comes to these things, but in the event that it doesn't pass, because I mean, if it passes, we know what the outcome is, right? The outcome is that parameter would change, and validators would get less rewards for validating the chain. However, the hub would be, I think, in the long term, better financial situation. If it doesn't pass, then what's the next step? Like, what's the outcome? Like, does this research just get tabled? Are there other discussions or like other ways forward here to improve the economics for the hub?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I would like to say on this is, and that's just my personal opinion, and I already voiced it to a few people, is I would have liked for this proposal to not see the light, to be honest, because I mean, this is blockchain, this is open source. Everyone is, of course, welcome to contribute in any capacity he or she wants. That's a given. That's blockchain. Now, what I think is damageable is that we, AADAO, spearheaded the process. We invested resources, we communicated a lot, etc. And so I would have liked for the tokenomic side to stay within the realm of Blockworks, Binary, and RMIT, just to avoid confusion, because they did a lot of prep work in terms of comps, right? They've been doing that for weeks, and then this inflation proposal comes in, which is not coming from Blockworks. We have to be clear about that. And so like it just adds confusion, and I thought it was a bad idea, because it brought some confusion, and it seems it's likely not gonna pass. Now, I don't think it's a big problem, honestly, because what Blockworks is suggesting, and if it passes, will end up in a much lower inflation. Is just a different framework. So that's also one of the reasons why Blockworks was not opposed to the inflation change, because it didn't prevent them for keeping their work, right? So that's not going to change. Like, if they can't do it, like if the proposal is refused, they will still be able to continue their work, which is to come up with a framework around predictable inflation, with a static inflation coming to a certain level. I think the goal is to bring inflation to 3%, but that would be done in a more progressive approach. So it's not a big deal. I mean, it's, for me, to be honest, it's mostly in terms of optics. It's because we communicate on that. We said, okay, tokenomics change are coming, and then we start the process with potentially a rejection. So it's not ideal as a start, but it's not going to prevent those three teams from completing their work. So that would be my take on. I don't know if it answers your questions, but that is my take.
Do you think that the hub over? I mean, do you agree with this with this idea that the hub is overpaying for security, or is that cost providing the hub with potentially like more users staking their Atom, so better security in on the whole
Well, yeah,
as there are more staked Atom.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're absolutely overpaying for security, and I don't want to say, is it a major showstopper? I don't know, but I think it's not good to have 20% inflation. Like it's just common sense. If you look at other L1s, the level of inflation is at least half smaller, and their security, they're doing fine with the security, right? So it's this argument that the bonded ratio, it's an artificial number. Who said that we need uh, 2/3 of stake token to make sure the hub is secure? That's just a random number that was assigned a few years ago, and things have changed since. Like, we have liquid staking, and this high inflation is also preventing DeFi from taking off, and that's a problem. You need DeFi. I mean, like, if you look at Cosmos before the Terra collapse, was the second strongest in terms of TVL after Ethereum, and so and Atom has a role to play in DeFi. So the fact that people are not doing anything with their Atom, they're just leaving it staked, uh, is not compatible with the narrative of Atom as money. If you want the narrative of Atom as money, then you need Atom to be in DeFi. And if you want to be Atom to be in DeFi, well, you need to lower the yield. There is no middle ground here. So yeah, we're absolutely overpaying for security, and we're gonna have to find a way. I don't know if it's a make or break deal. The fact that the inflation is staying high, it certainly doesn't help. But I think that we can find our way around, even with the high inflation. It's just not ideal, and it's somehow it could hurt the narrative of Atom as money.
Yeah. So let's talk about this funding proposal that by the time this comes out, it will be up on the Cosmos Hub forum, so people can go look at that. Um, yeah, what's in the proposal, and how do you plan to utilize this funding in 2024?
Yeah. So our funding proposal, it is uh, taking into consideration our learnings from the first year and our challenges. So one big change that we're doing for next year, if we pass governance, obviously, is to move from a part-time model contributor to a full-time model contributor. So right now, only 20-25% of our workforce is full-time, and the rest is part-time. And when I say part-time, it's not even 50% FTE. Sometimes it's like 5 to 10 hours per week, which is clearly not enough when you have the level of ambition that AADAO has. And so that's the first thing that we want to do. So we will migrate from 25% of people full-time to plus 70% full-time. Almost everyone is going to be full-time next year. That's the first change. The second change that we want to bring is we want to become a core organization of the hub. So we started as a pilot, and we want to become a more permanent organization serving the highest interest of the hub. But at the same time, we don't want to be a constant burden on the Cosmos Hub treasury and community pool. And so how do you address that? Well, the best way to address it is basically to start making revenues, start generating revenues. So if I give you the example of the Neutron clawback, which is now worth $22 million, under the new model we're suggesting, we would take a 20% take fee on that. And that would have made us, a few $1 million. And so we want to become self-sustainable financially. So we ask less from the Cosmos Hub. But the beauty of the thing is, yes, we ask less, but we remain 100% owned by the hub. And we want to keep being fully funded by the Cosmos Hub. So that's the second change that we want to do. Um, the third change, which is also very important, is so at the beginning of this interview, we talked about RFPs and we talked about open grants and we talked about servicing the general appetite of the Atom community. Well, now we know what is the appetite of the Atom community. It's they have a big appetite. So what we want to do next year is to migrate from a model of open grants to a model of RFPs and high value grants, just because the return on investment is much higher. So if I just give you the example of this RFP, the only RFP that we did with on tokenomics, if those proposals pass governance, the impact on the atom price is in the hundreds, if not billions of dollars. Like if you are able to fix inflation, the decrease taking tax, all those things that are very impactful. And so we did only one because we're not equipped for that. Our structure was mostly for open grants. And now we want to reshuffle a bit the organization so that we upskill uh, our technical capacities. So we're going to hire a few more people, a technical product manager, one more full-time dev, because right now we only have a part-time dev, and start doing those RFP, those deep research where we say, okay, in collaboration with the community, we will do research. We will do a short list of what are those items that are projects that are absolutely critical for the Cosmos Hub. For example, develop a stable coin that would be exclusively backed by Atom. There is some value for that. Like if you want to position Atom as money, then Atom needs its own stable coin, for example. That's not a project that you can do with an open grant with $100,000. That's a project that is much more costly, and you need the proper technical resources. You need the proper research resources to make it happen. And so next year, we'll split the grant budget in two halves. So one half is going to be for open grants, which is what we do right now, and the other half is going to be for those strategic RFP, or what I call also high priority grants. And then the last thing we're doing for next year, the last pillar of our strategy, last but not least, is to launch a growth sub DAO under AADAO, and we have tremendous expectations for that. I think there is a major consensus right now in Cosmos that Cosmos lacks visibility, is not doing great at selling itself, at marketing itself, is not doing great at acquiring new users, new developers. And so we want to address that by launching a specialized sub-DAO to drive awareness and increase distribution around Atom. So this new unit or sub-DAO, the growth sub-DAO, it will pursue strategic outreach that drives valuable acquisition while also acting as a central hub for processing external inquiries and requests, whether we're talking about other crypto protocols or Web2 TradeFi market participants. There are a lot of low-hanging fruits, and we need to address them. And that goes back to your point at the beginning of the call, which was, well, AADAO has become a trusted partner, and people come to us asking for BD initiative, etc. And so we said, well, we give grants, but we don't do BD. So let's do acquisition and BD to process those inbound application in a timely manner and in an efficient manner. So that is the reason why we're proposing to build this new sub DAO with a dedicated team of 4 to 5 people.
Do you think that AADAO should receive funding from other organizations like the ICF that have a lot of money? And I ask you this because I think that in order for the hub to, like, one of the conditions for the hub to be successful is for the hub to fund like a ton of projects to build on it, like high quality projects, but it needs to go out and fund projects to build the AEZ. And I mean, partly this is what you guys are doing, but that requires a lot of money and like a lot of resources. And I wonder if the Cosmos Hub treasury and also the revenues that you want to generate are sufficient to build this massive business development machine that the Cosmos Hub needs if it wants to be able to compete with the likes of Polygon and Avalanche and Solana. And that's just, those are just the existing ecosystems. Now think about, Celestia and Eigenlayer and all of these other emerging modular application stacks that will attract tons of users because they have, there's money to be deployed there, and also there's sort of hot narratives. Does AADAO have enough funding to do that, and should the ICF start pitching in your opinion?
That's a very good question. So in terms of BD, I think there are two ways to do it, and they're complementary. So you can do BD for the hub itself, you can do acquisition for the hub itself, and that's what we want to do with this new growth DAO, growth sub DAO. And then you can do BD for the entire ecosystem. So I think that the entire ecosystem, doing BD for the entire ecosystem, take much more financial resources that the DAO just doesn't have. And even if the hub wanted to do ecosystem-wide funding for the entire Cosmos, it probably wouldn't have enough money. And so the fact that you're mentioning the ICF here is spot on. And I've seen multiple parties on Twitter Space, etc., talk directly to the leadership of the ICF to say, hey, you guys need to step up. And I'll just share my own view on the ICF. I think that the ICF has done an amazing job at maintaining and developing the Cosmos tech stack, but that now it needs to step up its game and not stop the funding of the Cosmos tech stack, but direct a big part of the funding to the BD part, because the tech stack now is mature. For sure, you can keep developing IBC, you can keep refining the SDK, but I think that the basis is there, right? And so now what's going to make the difference between Cosmos and other ecosystem like Arbitrum, Optimism, Ethereum, etc., is just how much money you put in there to drive acquisition and to drive a larger user base. And the ICF is not doing that. And that's a big problem. And it is the richest org by far of the Cosmos. And the fact that they're still not willing to dedicate funding to bringing more users is a problem. Now, on us for the Growth DAO, because we're fully funded for now by the Cosmos Hub, we can't take that money from the community pool and start doing ecosystem-wide BD, because that would make sense, because we are owned by Atom, and so we need to do BD on Atom. We can't, blockchain, Cosmos is 70 blockchains, so we can't just put money for DYDX and others. But we're super open to get some funding as a grant, for example, from the ICF, and we already had some early talks about that, to do ecosystem-wide BD with more funding while remaining the property of the hub. That's not something that we want to change. I think that's a constant.
Yeah.
What made the success of AADAO, it's a very simple narrative. It's everything we do it for Atom. No matter what happens, AADAO will always remain the property of the hub, and that's not going to change. So if ICF comes to us and say, you know what, we give you money, but we want to own a part of you, that's not going to happen. We will remain with the hub, but we're super happy to take funding and do ecosystem wide, not BD, not just with the Atom money. It has to come from external money. That's my take.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I mean, I think we should probably wrap up here because we're running a little long. But your hot take was that you think that Atom will be a top 5 chain. I don't know if you have a sort of timeline on this, but regardless, what do you think needs to happen to get there? Because as I just mentioned, there's a lot of competition, and the hub I think still has a really strong brand. Atom has a really strong community of people who are holding Atom and believe in the token, believe in the vision of the hub. But that can all go away really fast. And if you look, you just have to look at ecosystems like Polkadot, for instance, which up until 2 or 3 years ago had like top mind share, lots of developers, building in that ecosystem, and I think that has kind of fizzled away now. And the vision for Polkadot and also the launch of the chain sort of happened around the same time as the hub. So what do we need to do in order to ensure that the hub doesn't sort of fall into irrelevance and becomes a zombie chain, or just like another failed idea that was surpassed by new, more interesting, more well capitalized, better coordinated, better organized ideas?
So the first thing I would say is I don't think that the hub can die or fade into irrelevance. And there's also there's almost like a mystical aspect to it, which is that you cannot compress, which is Atom is the an OG token, just like BTC and like ETH. And just like BTC and ETH are still there, yes, I mean BTC is not doing any innovation, right? It's a rock. It's
Yeah,
there
it's a
and
meme
still,
coin. I mean, like I think Atom will always remain its meme coinness, or retain it. But we want more than just meme coin.
of
Like, we
course,
want people building there. We want like this. The
of course,
AEZ idea is to build
yeah.
an economy there. And so if you're saying economy, you're saying something that's thriving, that's evolving, that like is generating value, that's like
Yeah,
actually doing
and
things.
so
Yeah.
look, there are multiple uh, ideas. There are multiple people, brilliant people, super smart people, like having their own vision. When I met with Sunny from Osmosis in Cosmoverse, and I had a talk with him, I was impressed with his vision, and he's going from basically core principles, first, like what are those primitives? He's saying that the hub has two superpower. One is its vast decentralization, the largest, the most decentralized validator set for an L1. I think it's, if not the most, maybe the second most. That's the superpower. And then the second superpower is on-chain governance. So if we can find a way to use those two primitives in service of bringing value to Atom, then we have a top 5 or even a top 3 token. I'm convinced. How to do that around those two primitives, I don't know. I don't have the answer. But I think that if we go from those first principles, we have a path to a top 3 token. Atom as money has absolutely to be explored. I keep saying, but that's my own opinion, that Atom as gas should be pursued within AZ, but not just AZ, within the entire interchain. It is a very powerful narrative. We need to give utility to Atom. That means that we need velocity. That's why we need to lower the inflation so that Atom can be there in DeFi, playing very strongly with all those competitors that we have. We like Atom is a preferred collateral. People just want Atom, right? So if people want it, you need to put it everywhere. You need to put it in DeFi. You need to put it on DAO's treasuries. You need to put it like as on lending protocols. You need to incentivize that. So like right now, and that's why protocol on liquidity and the Atom alignment treasury is so critical, I think, for the hub, is because it is a superpower to have a monetary policy and a fiscal policy as an on-chain governance body where you direct that liquidity, that money from the treasury directly to incentivize. Right now, the hub is not incentivizing those pools. What happens the day we incentivize it? You put Atom in the hands of everywhere. So Atom as money, I think, is the best shot for Atom in the medium to long term. And I would like to keep exploring what is a decentralized governance token look like, the Sunny's vision. So those are the two things I would love to keep exploring in the future.
Yeah, well, maybe some alpha here. Sunny's coming on the podcast in like a week or two to talk about this very idea. So it should be interesting. And yeah, I'd love to get some of the other folks doing the research, on the show as well, to dive a little deeper here. And yeah, I mean, like, look, I've been holding Atom since the token sale, and I still believe in the vision. I hope I'm not proven wrong here by holding these assets. But yeah, I mean, like, I still believe in the vision for the hub. I still think the hub, being highly decentralized, having really strong governance, having a really strong community as well. I think like that's one of the biggest things going for the hub is just like the community, the cosmonauts, right? Like this idea that this cosmonaut idea, and so I'm still rooting for the hub as you are. So I'm hopeful that we can make all these really good ideas come to life.
Yeah, 100%.
Great. Youssef, thanks so much for coming on. It's been great chatting with you, and I wish you the best in your
Thank you very much,
in the proposal as it goes on chain.
Yeah, thank you so much. Take care.